This is a surprisingly spoopy atmosphere. Welcome back, everyone. I wonder where the seagulls went, Ben.
I don't know. Why would they have left? Why wouldn't they be? It's don't worry about it too much. Ignore the bottom left corner of the screen.
No, don't ignore it. We're at the end of episode 4.
Ignore it.
They should know that. This is the post-edit recap.
Don't let the people know.
They need to know.
They need
where
to be
we're
in the
up
dark for as long as possible.
What the fuck? So hey everyone, we've reached the end of episode 4. I think this might actually be the closest video in terms of when we're recording it relative to when we're uploading it.
Yeah.
Because this is coming out on Monday and it's currently Friday.
Yay. Good timing,
and we've just reached the end of episode 4 and editing the end of episode 2.
Good shit.
It's been a lot of fun. I have enjoyed the hell out of this.
Yeah, me too.
And we've come back to talk to you about our feelings on episode 2 now that we're done editing it, what we noticed, what we saw, what changed.
What did change?
What did change? I think the first thing that you should know is that last time we were kind of a bit touchy on spoilers. We tried to avoid them in the end of the episode 1 post-edit recap.
Yeah.
Fuck that shit. Spoilers. Yeah. Kinzo's the culprit.
It's true. Fucking Kinzo did everything.
That's right.
If anything, I've learned that it's a Kinzo culprit theory.
It's true. Except they're all the same person.
It's true. Wow. All right.
So yeah, spoilers and shit.
Let's go. What do you want to start off with?
I wanted to talk about, first of all, just the general experience of going back over episode 2 and also reliving my experience of experiencing it for the first time. Convoluted sentence. But
I understand.
Episode 1, I was still kind of in the touchy territory of like, this is anime bullshit. I was still like kind of sold on the fact that it was a compelling mystery, and also you'd done a really good sell on the story before we started it.
Thank you.
Which is why I even suggested that we do this in the first place. But there was just something about episode 2 that was like, fuck, I'm on board now. I think if you actually go back and rewatch it, it's around the chapel murder where I'm like, yeah, boy, let's go, let's do this shit.
Compared to episode 1, episode 2 gets into the thick of it much more quickly. Especially since like Beatrice like just shows up right at the beginning, does all her shit, has all her scenes where she's like talking with Cannon and Shannon and all that, and then the chapel murders is just like right in your face, like here are deaths, their stomachs are stuffed with candy. It's crazy. And the kind of paranoid atmosphere that EP2 creates is like really compelling, I feel.
Yeah, I think definitely the thing for me that kind of like sold it to me was once we basically witnessed that Battler had no idea how magic was still working, even though we were seeing it like right up in our faces. So the moment we had like the scene in the chapel, Beatrice is there, Rosa's there, and then we get there the next morning and Rosa has no idea what's happened, and all of the adults are dead. I'm like, oh,
magic's weird.
This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And I picked up really early on the whole idea of the unreliable narrator. At this point in the recording, I mean, it was in episode 3, we were basically just told that's what happened.
Yep.
I'll flash up a few edits on screen of like a bunch of screen caps I got of the story in episode 2 telling you that it's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
But they're a lot more subtle.
It was a world of lies. Something curious.
There's even a straight up line where it's like, you can't believe it if you don't see it with your own eyes.
Yep.
And it's like, to me, that was super obvious.
Well, this is the thing, and this is something that I talked about a couple times during the EP2 playthrough, that like, Ryuji thought this was too difficult. Or a lot of people thought this was too difficult. Obviously, he did when he wrote it, and then he like toned it down for the later episodes. But you seem to be pretty on the ball from the get-go. Like, I think it was the second chapter, maybe even the first chapter, where you were like, yo, is this an unreliable narrator? Is that what we're dealing with?
Yeah, I think like my initial phrasing of it is that it was the witch's retelling.
Yes.
Because I didn't have any premise, because I haven't read Higurashi, I didn't know how the like repeating stories thing worked.
Sure.
And apparently that's just a trend in Japanese visual novels, someone told me. I don't know.
What is?
Like the whole repeating stories.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, it's becoming a bit more popular now.
Yeah. Someone mentioned it to me. I don't know. I haven't read any more than this.
It's a trope I'm a big fan of, by the way. Groundhog Day. Get on that shit.
But I didn't have any premise for the fact that it was going to repeat again.
Yeah.
So I thought it was like, I thought it was gonna when we first got into episode 2, I thought it was going to be like episode 1 was the Ashuramiya murders, then episode 2
It'll be
was
something completely different.
Yeah, it was going to be something
That was
completely
definitely something that I was holding close to my chest, because I was always like, what do you think's going to happen? Where do you think we can go from here?
Yeah, because I thought the entire premise of the story was going to be that episode 1 was the murder we meant to solve, and episodes 2 through 7 were going to be other murders and other mysteries that then helped us solve the first one.
Yeah.
That's so out the fucking window at
it's
this
not
point.
at all what's happening. Which is fun, because I think I even asked you in episode 1 the question of like, well, what's the point of this story if we're like repeating the same events? What the fuck? Why is this even a story worth telling?
Yeah.
Definitely something to think about.
But basically, the moment that we got back in and it's like, wait, this is the same story over again. Okay, why are we telling the same story? Okay, there's magic. This is the witch's version of what happened.
Sure.
And that I don't think is particularly close to the truth. Like, I think it accidentally ended up being close to the truth if we're sticking with the idea of the message bottles, which is something we were told in episode 4.
Yep.
So it might accidentally be close to the truth, but it's more that by just taking that stance, I kind of inadvertently worked myself into what seems to be the correct way to approach the story. So I thought that's cool. I was proud of myself as I went back and edited it. But, you know.
Yeah.
In the end, they told you how to do it anyway. I think...
I mean, yeah, EP3 is...
We'll get to EP3
We'll get to EP3
later.
when we get there.
But that's certainly kind of like the stance and how things flowed through episode 2. It was very much, I picked up on it straight away, and then it was just fleshing out those ideas as we went on. I think the other thing to address is, oh my god, episode 2 was way harder than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Like, when we were recording, I was like, this is alright, this is fine, this is possible by humans.
These are my theories.
And then I got to the end of editing episode 2, and I just watched the other recap, which is coming out the same day as this video, and I'm like, what the fuck was I on? None of these work!
Look, your theories were fine, you just didn't understand how to play the game at the time.
Yeah, like,
That's all.
I think the chapel one was kind of alright, because they basically were like, this is how it could be done, and then didn't tell us otherwise.
What I found interesting is you were like, yo, Battler's just telling us the truth, which I thought was an interesting claim for you to make.
If you remember, I took the perspective that it was less about showing that Battler was being competent and more about showing the audience that it was possible.
Sure, it was possible to slip through the reds.
Yeah, because in the frame of EP2 being very hard, it made sense that there was one where the author's like, don't worry guys, it's possible.
Actually, I have a question for you.
Sure.
There's a user currently going through on Kenjima, Zosante. Shout out to that dude. I hope this doesn't ruin your experience too much, but I want to talk about you for a second because I love you, man. Zosante has a theory, but it relies on the red truce being untrue. He thinks that you can lie with the red. Is that something that you had ever considered?
Oh god, yes. That was the first thing I thought of the moment that it said this tells the truth.
Totally.
Because the moment that you state that something states the truth with the thing that supposedly states the truth, it's a circular argument.
It absolutely is.
You
yes.
can't win.
Yeah, like she's like, yo, she speaks in the red. She's like, the red is the truth. There's no need to doubt it. Right.
I think the way that at this point, having reread episode 2, and I think it's particularly episode 2 that sold me on this one, it's that the red truth is true in that you must be able to frame the truth in that way.
Sure.
I don't think it is absolute truth, for reasons we'll get into in a bit.
Oh.
But as long as there is an interpretation of events that could classify that as true, it's acceptable.
Sure. Okay.
I don't think it is categorically untrue in any way, because I have been able to make a solution with the red truth that seems to line up pretty well with a lot of what we've been shown.
Sure.
But to kind of jump back to like the closed room stuff that I had, there was the first one was chapel, which was fine. Jessica's room, I really confidently threw out with the key tag.
We missed the detail.
She
actually tries the key in the door, right?
She does. I will say, as I said in the comments when someone pointed this out to me, shout out to you, sir, but it is possible that Rosa is still lying.
It's possible.
It wasn't stated in red that she actually tried the key and it was the right one, so
it's true. I mean,
still a loophole.
You can't trust anything that isn't in red after all.
Yeah, and I mean, you laugh, but basically that one I think was probably the first big hole I had in episode 2, just because I missed the detail and then caught onto another detail that was probably less relevant.
Sure.
Interestingly enough, though, it's come back around to bite me in episode 4, but we'll let you watch that far ahead.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys.
But I think the other thing is that I've now established a culprit theory that doesn't have any necessity for that to be an issue at all. So my solution for that was still potentially valid, but a bit of a mess. Then for the murders of George, Goda, and Shannon,
in Natsu's room. Go for the mirror, and then they're killed by Beatrice and the goats.
I was rewatching the other recap video, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I was like, maybe they went into the room and then died.
Yep.
Neglecting that Shannon had a fucking hole in her head.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you could stretch it and be like, the others were stabbed in less vital places and then carried Shannon in, but what the fuck?
Yeah,
it was so stupid.
Yeah, I mean, your current theory relies on less complicated means, like, you know, carrying dead bodies and traps and all sorts of bullshit like that, which I think is a strength of your theory, certainly.
Yeah, and then...
Get that shit out of here.
To be clear, he's saying that my theory doesn't rely on that.
Yeah, it doesn't rely on traps.
You phrased that kind of weirdly.
Sorry, my bad.
But then there's also Nanjun Kumasawa's murders, where I basically said, I kind of just avoided giving a solution.
Yep.
I didn't think that I had at the time, but watching it back yesterday, I was like, what? That's not an answer?
Yeah.
I basically said maybe they didn't die where they died, and that was my solution. That's not a fucking solution.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta poke a little bit deeper to get some details.
So yeah, that was a load of shit. So despite coming out of episode 2 when we were recording feeling relatively confident, I just fucking...
There were a lot of holes.
There were a lot of
holes in your arguments.
More holes in my theory than there were in the Ashuramiya family at the end of that mystery.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Not wrong, though. And then I guess the other thing we should talk about is traps, because that was one thing you brought up, is that my initial theories use kind of like, not so much trap, but more just device X and thing X.
Device X, method X. There could be a method X which kills people. Like, that's not an argument. That's not a detail.
Part of that is that I didn't really understand how we were tackling murder mysteries. Like, I've done a bit more research into murder mysteries. I've read a couple of like murder mystery short stories since we started this, so I'm a bit more on board with how things work now than we were when I started. But I still think that the fact that I fell back on device X, trap X when I was theorizing for episode 2 really says a lot about how difficult this episode was.
Yep.
Like,
if you're not familiar with murder mysteries, you'd be like, how could that even happen? It must be magic. But then people, like, if you listen to other people's like podcasts and such about episode 2, they're talking about the murder at the end and in the closed room, and like, well, it like a lot of people are like, well, either somebody has a key or they kill from the inside, and they list off like, these are all the closed room tricks that I'm aware of, and there were like 4 of them. And you don't have access to that like wealth of knowledge of like closed room tricks, because they're pretty standard in murder mysteries.
Yeah, like even there was one trick that I discovered in reading And Then There Were None, which was an inspiration tale for Umineko.
Yep.
I would say supposedly, but I feel like it's pretty fucking obvious if you know the stories.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
Well, basically the whole premise is the same to an extent, but the culprit of that story dies the same way as it seems like Shannon dies in this episode.
Right.
And that was kind of what sold me on my current culprit theory. Someone was asking me on the Rikenjima forum this week, you know, what my culprit theory is now for episode 2, and that was kind of like the foundation of how I started on my current culprit theory. Was I read through... I first read through a synopsis.
I was gonna say, the Wikipedia page, yes.
I have actually gone through and read through it now.
Cool. It's a good book.
It was pretty good, but the way that Wargrave dies... spoilers, whoopsie.
Spoilers.
Whoopsie daisies.
Bleep that out. Shit.
No, we fucking warned them at the start. Fuck them.
Fuck you. You're the worst. A good book. Put a little spoiler tag for When There Are None. Just put it.
Don't worry, it'll be there.
Put it on the screen.
But basically, the way that Wargrave dies in And Then There Were None is that he shoots himself with a gun in such a way that the gun falls where it, you know,
can't be seen.
Can't be resolved to be him as the one having shot himself. And if we assume that Shannon, who has a stake not in her head but on the floor next to her, if we assume that the fact that she's keeled over the dresser is because there's a gun behind it that she shot such that it would collapse behind there, I think that's a pretty nice way to wrap up that, and also a very convenient way to identify a culprit, if that is indeed the case.
Sure. It's possible.
I guess we should just do a quick run through of how I think each Twilight was done, now that we're kind of getting on this pain train.
If you'd like to, yeah.
So, episode 1, Rosa and my culprit, who is Shannon/Canon, is one person for reasons that episode 3 goes into.
Sure.
So basically, Rosa and the culprit met with the adults in the chapel, showed them the gold, and was like, fuck you, and shot them all, and then set up a bunch of candy. I feel like
Delicious candy.
I feel like the reason it's indicated that Rosa was involved is because she's there in the magic scene, and also because she's the one that we're shown buying candy.
Right.
The second one is pretty simple. It's just the culprit playing Canon, kills Jessica, and then flees. And then the trick that we're given in red is that the Canon personality has died, but the culprit has not, and thus plays Shannon the rest of the episode. Then George and Shannon go into Nasui's room looking for this thing. Shannon, the culprit, kills George and Goda, puts stakes in their bodies, then, like, stains the stake that she has for herself in blood and shoots herself in the aforementioned way. Then Nanju and Kumasawa are killed by Genji, killed by Genji in such a way that their corpses will appear after the culprit has died, to make it seem as though the culprit's still active on the island. Again, another, like, calling card, or perhaps the wrong phrase, but another thing from And Then There Were None, in that the culprit makes it seem like they were active after they're dead.
Sure.
And, well, in a way, but...
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It seems like the culprit is dead and in them.
Yeah. It's the other way around.
Yeah, because the whole thing in, like, the climax is that there's only 3 people left and one of them dies, and so the last 2 are like, well, fuck, you're the murderer. And then that's what gets them.
But neither of them are.
Of course.
Anyway, but so, yeah, Genji killed those last 2 under influence from the culprit for reasons I'm still kind of unclear on, but I think it has something to do with the actual Shirimiya family lineage.
I mean, yeah, that is one of the biggest things you're kind of struggling with, is that you've got all these accomplices killing everyone on the island, and, like, everyone seems to die.
Yeah.
Like, why is this a thing why do people even work with this person? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, like, go into it too much, because
cool.
I feel like it's less relevant for episode 2, whereas episode 2 was... Well, maybe not...
I just want to point it out.
Not less relevant, but it's... From what I've seen in terms of what's actually in episode 2 when I was going back and editing, is that episode 2 is a lot more about trying to show you the who, because the entirety of the opening of episode 2 is Beatrice, Canon, and Shannon kind of like talking with each other, which, under the theory that they are all the same person, is actually like the 3 multiple personalities of this one person discussing in their head.
Sure.
And if you actually go back and look at the way that all of those scenes are framed, like Shannon and Canon get the exact same mark on their hands, it's all very indicative of that theory.
Sure.
So, I don't know, there's probably, if not definitely, things in episode 2 that point towards the why people are working with this particular culprit. But in terms of what I found in editing, which is what this is about, that's kind of like my main focus, is the why and, sorry, the who and the how.
Sure.
I'd be really interested to go back through a third time once we're wrapped up and to actually see what foreshadowing I have missed in episode 2, because I'm sure there's some.
Look, I'm just gonna let you know, every single episode reframes the previous ones. I'm sure you figured out by now.
Absolutely.
When we get to the end of episode 8, you're gonna want to go through this all one more time, and it's gonna kill you to go through it. So
I'm completely prepared for this eventuality.
Bring your friend is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I think... What else? What about you, Ben? What about you editing as the veteran?
Here's the thing. I don't care so much about solving the mystery. That's just how I am. I'm gonna let you know.
I think it's definitely something that we go into a bit later, but you're definitely more of a character-driven person.
I mean, I'm gonna let you know. Going into episode 4, like, I wasn't really trying to solve the mystery at all. I was just like looking at the characters and trying to figure them out, particularly Beatrice, because I found some things very interesting in episode 3 and episode 4 that, I don't know, maybe you weren't paying as close attention to, but then again, you're like actually trying to solve the murders.
Yeah, I
didn't really figure
this is
out.
something I'm pretty sure we cover a few times later on, but definitely one of my things in stories and reading them and consuming them in various ways is that I like to basically go through, figure out the who and the how the first time, and then I go back through and look at the why the second time. Like, that's kind of just how I do stories in general. Even, like, less mystery-driven stories, I'll read through it and be like, sick gunplay and explosions and shit.
Yep.
And then the second time through, I'll be like, okay, why?
Yeah, I'm dead focused on the why. That's who I am.
Because the thing is I don't want to, like, get into a whole discussion about, like...
I know, it's okay.
About other media, but
Yep.
I find, especially with, like, a lot of movies that I go to see with friends these days, it's like their stories are very unconducive to having an interesting plot if you look at the characters.
Sure.
Like, they have a lot of very, very thin characters. So it's always a lot more fun to go through and just enjoy what's good about them, and then if they have something strong in terms of character, you can go back and re-look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the kind of guy who, when going through EP2 the first time, I was like hanging on pretty much every line, trying to figure out, like, why would that character say that? Why would that character say that to that person? I hadn't twigged on, like, I was like, okay, so maybe there's an unreliable narrator or something, but I wasn't really set on the idea the way you were. By the end of EP2, I was still trying to, like, figure things out.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that because we're, like, trying to do this at pace to actually get through the story, like, we actually have a motive to get things done within a watchable length.
Yeah.
We have less time to kind of sit and hang on dialogue than you would if you were just reading it.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel that.
And I think that's, to get back to what we said at the end of the last recap, that's definitely one of the strengths of going through it multiple times, is that, like, for me, I'm going to go through this time for the who and the how, and then I can go back through again with the why.
Yeah.
And that'll be a really cool experience for me, whereas for you, it's kind of the other way around.
Yeah, like, if I was going through Umineko as I am now, I would I would have Umineko open on one screen, I'd have my Discord with my friends who are also excited about Umineko on another screen, I'd have a Google Doc open that's like 1,000 pages long with all of my notes and screenshots, and I would just slowly fill that up with notes and screenshots and quotes and things, so that I could go through it later and, like, construct a fucking essay on why Battler is the worst character.
I don't think you need an essay on that.
I still enjoy him. I definitely talked a little bit about, like this story as a murder mystery and why Battler is, like, an interesting choice as a detective, because, like, George would probably make a much better detective.
Yeah, there was definitely a line in the middle of episode 2 where we describe Battler as the Watson of the story, which I think is probably one of my favorite moments from this entire episode.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm 100% on board with that. Like, there are way smarter characters than Battler, and yet he is the detective. But it's because he, like, cares about his family. It's, like, the big thing about him that kind of matters. But yeah, in terms of characters, we had a lot of magical we had the stakes introduced.
We did have the stakes introduced.
How are you feeling about the number of younger female characters that you're having to voice? How do you feel right now?
Okay, so at the end of episode 2, I was kind of alright with it.
Yeah.
I'd kind of resigned myself to the fact that playing a piece of Japanese media, because I have a very stereotypical view of Japanese media.
Damn straight.
Perhaps that's very immature and small in scope of me,
True.
But it's nonetheless the opinion that I came in with.
It's definitely accurate for Rikishi's works. Like, Higurashi, you play as a male protagonist, but 90% of the other characters are young teenage girls.
Yeah, but I was feeling fine about it at the end of episode 2. I'm like, this is bearable. I can cope with this. But now that we're 4 episodes in, and I feel like my average cadence of speech in the episodes is very quickly getting higher and higher pitched.
I feel you.
As there's less male work for me.
This is Ryukishi. Okay, I'm sorry. This is how he rolls. He just loves cute girls. It's a thing.
Yeah, also,
he's like Nia's director.
Speaking of high-pitched voice, I'm sorry about the end of episode 2 where I slaughtered my voice.
No,
I got so hyped.
I know.
Over fucking what happened at the end of episode 2 that Lambda, and also the beginning of episode 3, I just had no range in my voice.
Look, you better do Lambda justice, because she's super pop and cute.
Yeah.
And she's amazing.
There's definitely a few things, if I was going to go through again in the series, I'd probably dub over. I might actually yet dub over the end of episode 3, because I just did a shit voice for a character.
Yeah. That's true, actually. Yeah, I remember that now.
It was a very shit voice.
It was good fun. I'm excited to get to editing that part. Anyway, Yeah, there's definitely some parts that like I kind of want to dub over, and there's some parts in the future that I feel will be difficult to voice.
Well, let's do the same thing we did
yeah.
last time. In terms of episode 2, who do you think was your strongest and weakest voice?
Oh fuck! Wait, who did I even get as a new voice in this?
Well, just overall.
I mean, Beatrice, clearly. Like, my Beatrice in EP1 was kind of shaky, not really, you know, in the character, but
I mean, you also got less time to play the character.
It's true. Like, she came in at the end, and a lot of people point out in the comments, like, oh, your Beatrice is... I shouldn't mock you guys, but you guys are like, you know, she's just like Nazi.
No, fuck it, mock them.
I will mock the audience, you sons of bitches. How dare you criticize me?
I think the main thing at the end of episode 1, though, was that you just didn't try laugh.
It's true. I didn't try and laugh.
Despite doing a perfect cackle over the entire end credits because of your own amusement, you struggled to laugh as Beatrice.
Because look, there's a lot of pressure. I'm letting you know, there's a lot of pressure on specific characters to fucking get them right. Beatrice, certain Chiru character, and Goda. Those are my 3 voices that I will never fuck up. Ever.
Again.
Ever.
I don't know, have you listened to the end of episode 1?
Shh.
Okay.
Ever again.
And what about your worst voice from this episode? I don't think you actually got anyone new this entire episode.
I didn't. No, I got no new voices. You had all the new voices, which is fitting considering how things are going to go from here. Because we realized, well, I realized, maybe you told me, that I'd ended up with all the servants because I just had all these voices that I wanted to do for them, and then I was like, shit, I've ended up with way more characters than you. So that's why I gave you, like, you can just play all the stakes.
Which I think is fine, because I'm completely on board with giving them all the same voice and just slightly changing my tone when it switches.
It's great. I don't know, like, I didn't get any new... We can go next and look at the magical characters.
Yeah, let's go do that. I'm pretty sure
none of those fuckers are new, except for Beatrice.
The only new magical character we got was Lambda.
Lambda Delta and the stakes, which you played all of, which I'm totally fine with. I mean, we had a bit more burn, which was always fun. She's probably my weakest voice, I guess, if I had to like pick one.
Yeah.
That's just because she's never on screen.
I think
I don't have time to like practice her voice.
Cannon and Burn are probably the weakest for exactly the same reasons.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I'm trying to play them as like less interesting, because that's kind of how they are. I'm just trying to play the
some
character.
amusing moments where like later on Burn's meant to like giggle and you just kind of like because that's just the voice.
I mean, yeah, look, it makes sense.
I know, but it just feels so strange after the like bombastic cackle you've given Beta.
Yeah, it's true. Beta? You mean Beatrice?
Fuck you.
She's
no, I'm using
she's not called Beta at this point in the story.
Is this a tail? I haven't just noticed that. Is that in the
she has a little, it's kind of cut off though, but yes, she has a little cat tail.
I don't know how I feel about like all of the sprites being cut off in the new
I know. I bet there's, like, I have the feeling that there is like a full body sprite.
The other thing is that they cut off like the bottom alongside this inner frame, but then they've cut off the outer just the whole way out of the screen.
Yeah.
So it's like not even consistent.
It's a bit annoying. It's true. Some of them are, oh god.
I think definitely the new sprites are growing on me though.
I still really enjoy them. I love them. Usagi best girl. Okay, shout out to you. You hard worker, you. Illy. But like, I mean, yeah, I personally prefer the old sprites, but I do really enjoy the Steam sprites. They have a lot of life to them.
I think for me, my voices this time through.
Yeah.
I think Battler is becoming my strongest. Mm-hmm. Kinzo didn't appear in this episode, so I can't really say he was.
He didn't
my best.
do much. No.
He wasn't. No, he wasn't.
No, he was in his study.
He
showed up at the end. Yes, he did. He shows up at the end when he's like, "Come to the study, and I will tell you all the things." And then it's Kinzo and Beatrice having a
You're
good
right,
old time.
actually.
And then he gets eaten by goats.
Yeah.
How could you forget that?
I didn't really forget it. I just kind of was mixing it in with the beginning of episode 3.
It's true. Well, it's only like that part is the tea party, him being eaten by goats.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I feel like my Battler voice got a lot stronger this time. I don't think it's the voice that I'm going for still.
It's fine.
More because I lack the capacity to do accents properly.
Oh god, I feel that so hard.
But I feel like my actual performance of him as a character is just getting better. Like, I feel like it was a lot more emotive this time through. Like, there were a lot of scenes, particularly with Battler and Jessica at the end of episode 1, where I was so focused on trying to figure out what the fuck was going on that I was just like, and did that bit?
I should ask you, how are you finding that? Like, because I find myself, I'm gonna let you all know, there are some points where I either drift away from the mic or I start to lose my accent because I'm like thinking about things. I'm like, oh shit, that's what that is, or that's what that line means. Do you ever have moments like that where you're like, oh shit, like I just had a realization? And
less about drifting from mic technique and from the voices, and more just from the actual emotion of what's going on.
Yeah.
Plus, also, one thing that I really like about Umineko, which I've mentioned, I think, a bit in episode 1, is I really like how the music sometimes just doesn't fucking fit what seems to be going on at all.
Yeah.
Because the music is kind of tailored to the greater narrative than it is to the scene, which I really like.
I love the witch music. It's the best shit.
Like, there are some moments where it's like something completely calm is going on and they're just having a discussion, but there's just this really fucking creepy music going.
Yeah.
And it frames what the conversation means in the greater story.
Totally.
And I really, really love that.
Totally. It totally fucks with you.
But it also makes it very confusing to voice the characters, because while the actual scene that's going on might be very calm and collected, if there's this over-the-top track going on, I sometimes like switch to match the track rather than the scene. I think particularly at the end of episode 2 with the whole best mom scene.
She is best mom.
I really kind of like missed a beat in terms of how Rosa was meant to be emotive in that scene, because I was like, this music's hype as shit. So I was like all on board with the music, but not really.
Like there's I think
the like stress that the character would have had in that moment.
The bit where she's like, fuck, what's the quote? I used to know this off by heart. In one hand I hold my gun that protects my life, in the other I hold the gold that protects my future, but I've let go of the hand of my daughter. Which to me, when I read that shit, I was like, like my mind exploded and I spit
that was a really cool moment. But I think I was so focused on which track is it at the moment? It's
World End Dominator, which is the hyper shit.
I've been listening through the soundtrack like so much this week.
It's amazing.
Really
I told you. You were like, oh, these tracks are kind of okay. They're poorly produced. I told you.
They're still really poorly produced. There's like a few of them that are pretty dodgy.
Look, they have like no money.
But
I'm just saying.
Just because a track is poorly produced doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's kind of true about a lot of Umineko, that like it's poorly edited. There are some problems with scenes and writing and repeating ourselves, but fuck if it isn't terrific,
It's like I
feel like the soundtrack is perfect for Umineko.
The relevant comparison to me, like before I read this story, is Metallica's album "And Justice for All."
I don't know.
I know you don't know it, but. It's like it's a pretty shittily produced album. Like the story goes that the drummer came in and was basically like, I don't like this mix, let's turn down the bass, turn up the drums, and like just fuck with the whole mix. So it sounds really shit, but the songwriting is so top notch on that album that it is still a classic.
Sure.
And I feel the same about Umineko, and particularly its soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like there are some things, like even World End Dominator, and it's ZTS, right? Or ZTS?
ZTS, and whatever. He's the composer for a lot of the really hype tracks.
But like, in particular, his tracks, they feel kind of like, they just kind of throw a whole bunch of shit in there.
Yeah, he just threw a bunch of shit in and was like, this'll work.
And like, the instrumentation's over the top, the kick is just side-chained to fuck. If that doesn't mean anything to you,
it doesn't mean anything to me, but that's okay.
But like, the actual writing of the song and the way that it kind of helps tell the story and the themes that are going on, like Mirage Coordinator, which is like you've said is kind of like Byrne and Lambda's theme.
Yep.
That track, when it appears elsewhere in the story, you're just like, the moment it starts playing, I'm like, oh!
Yeah, definitely. Like when a character's theme starts playing and they're not on screen, you're like, do they have are they doing what's happening
and
here?
I've also noticed a lot more in editing than I have in playing that there are a lot of themes that appear a lot more frequently than I thought.
Yeah.
Like particularly there's a theme from the middle of World End Dominator which appears as other tracks titled World End something throughout the story.
Yep.
And I just never noticed that was actually a theme there, because like the sheer intensity and the rhythm with which it happens in World End Dominator is completely different to where it happens elsewhere. And it's really cool to compare like what is the connection between those scenes.
Yeah, definitely. There's a track in EP4, which I'm not going to say what it is, because we're not there yet, but it has Golden Slaughterer in it. The melody from Golden Slaughter, but like, not nearly as creepy. And just hyper shit. Not that Golden Slaughterer isn't hyper shit, but...
But yeah, I think, actually, having now gone through and edited it, I think probably the thing that stands out to me the most, other than the things we've already covered in terms of like foreshadowing and character motivation and all of that.
The fucking kick-ass soundtrack!
The thing that I've been enjoying the most in editing this episode is the soundtrack, because
Yes!
that shit is beautiful.
It's mint. Get on it. And it
Like-
only gets better.
Yeah, like, I think, as somewhat of a hobbyist musician myself, I might have to work on some covers of my own, so that I can share them with people, maybe as a little gift for when we finish the series.
That would be amazing. Do it.
Wouldn't it be fun?
Make a promise. Is this a promise?
This is not a promise.
Are you saying it
I'm not
in
saying
red?
it in red. I'm saying.
You fucking knew I was going with that. You son of a bitch.
Of course I knew where you were going. It's so fucking predictable. You know what else is predictable? This story.
Oh.
I'm gonna eat my words on that one.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed our episode 2 recap. I don't know if you have anything more you want to say. I think I've covered everything I wanted to.
I think I'm done. I think I'm good. Beatrice, best girl.
Yeah, I think anything else that I would have said, I kind of already said in the episode 1 recap, so I won't restate myself. Like, things like, you know, in terms of rereading the story and its value, but, you know, as I said, we've covered that. You can go back and read that. You should reread the story. It'll
Keep
be wonderful.
rereading it. Do it like 5 times.
Closing thoughts on episode 2, Ben?
Oh, I mean, it was fucking tight.
I think it was probably my favorite written episode thus far.
It's my favorite. After rereading through all 4, so this is out of all 4 rereading, episode 2 is my favorite. When I was reading the first time, it was probably my second least favorite, but it's jumped up after I've like gone through everything again and like appreciating all the shit that's going on.
Yeah, I think episode 2 is not my favorite episode overall, but I think it is definitely my favorite in terms of how it is written.
Sure.
And I think that's important.
Cool. Alright.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're starting Churu in like minutes.
Yay!
Oh my god. Ben,
This should be fun.
what a fun mystery novel.
Yeah.
This is the part where you say my quote at the end of last one. Do you remember it?
No, I don't fucking remember.
Okay,
you
make
think I
something
reread?
up. Make something up.
I'm Felix, and this has been my mystery solving. What do you think, everyone?
That was shit.
It's perfect.